Alright, we're finally live. My computer is almost dead. I am an idiot when it comes to computers. This video is called tctc because I'm too lazy to turn on my light and dig through my stuff to get out the keyboard so that I can type a proper name for it. Once in a while, I run across stuff on Facebook that sounds really good and makes perfect sense. And sometimes it's actually applicable to my situation. This is not one of them. It says their reaction to you holding them accountable is not your burden to carry. Should not be my burden to carry. Mind you, I am still taking the punishment for the horrible things that happened to me. That many of these consequences are going to be lifelong. There's another one in here that I want to get to. I'll find it. Oh, here's one. It's comedy, but it's not the one I'm trying to bring up. Oh, here's one. And this is from somebody I know in real life, actually. It says, nobody apologized for how they treat me. They just blamed me for how I reacted. Yeah. The worst part is, the way that I reacted at first was completely different from what I ultimately had to do, because all of the normal routes that you're supposed to take fell through. I fell through the cracks at every step of the way, and I had to do desperate things to try to get heard, especially with crazies threatening my friends, my family's lives. Here's a good one. Goes for the volunteers, goes for the cops, goes for my relatives, goes for my friends, and goes for me. It says, we are all fucked up. Some of us just don't lie about it. I tell the truth. You may not like all of the decisions that I have made, but you should thank your lucky stars that you have not been in a position where you had to make those decisions. Take a look at Ukraine right now. I know that's a big thing. That's what's important to most of y'all right now. That's what's on the news, so that's what you're supposed to care about. I get it. That's why I try to cover Ukraine at least a little bit. I know quite a bit of shit. Here's a good one. Be decisive. Right or wrong, make a decision. The road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision. That's from my friend Jeff Baldridge. Yep, right or wrong, there comes a point where you have to make a stand. You have to make a decision. I'm not allowed to make a stand, though, am I? If I try to take Scott DeCosta to court, him and his co-workers will work together because they work closely with the courts because they're fucking cops. Have me locked up again. There's quite a bit of stuff in here. Oh, here's one that's nice. It says, stop being considerate in situations where you aren't considered. I disagree with that. Be considerate, always. Always start off considerate. Always. When it gets to the point where you can't be considerate, And yes, I understand that if you've got somebody who's got a potato peeler and is threatening to peel off all of your skin, I understand that defending yourself is sort of a choice in that situation. You could sort of, if you had an extremely high pain tolerance, I suppose you could allow someone to peel off all of your skin with a potato peeler, but I would not fucking recommend it. Somebody does not have to hold a gun to your head to force your decision. They can always cut out all of your other options until you come down to basically two of them. Do you take the abuse for the rest of your life? Or do you kill yourself and get it over with? If you stick around, at least you can fight for others. When your life and your reputation and your livelihood and every other portion and aspect of your life has been taken away, and you are no longer considered a human being and are no longer afforded the rights of a human being or the rights of the Constitution of the United States, you can still fight for those rights for others. If you are well and truly hated, that's a good thing. And I'm going to tell you why. When Selena Not Afraid disappeared and she ended up dead, so obviously it's not a good fucking story. However, because of me speaking out 10 months earlier about that exact same town, Hardin, Montana, specifically a video on this YouTube channel called The Missing Women of Hardin, Montana, 14,000 people saw that in just a few days. A lot of people who hated me spread the word. A lot of people who hated me over things that I didn't even do. Because they watched a web sleuth show from a web sleuth who's not willing to look at my side, not willing to look at any of the evidence. It's horrible. I have said time and again, I want my life to be over. I've also admitted that I've been to jail to protect children. I've also been to prison for the same thing. Well, you think I'm doing this stuff just to piss people off? That's stupid. Natalie's life should be a lesson. My life should be a lesson in the lack of humanity in this country, and the lack of people's willingness to listen to someone who is broke, or someone who is called mentally ill, or someone who is homeless. How easy those people are to victimize. Ted Bollinger could have raped Natalie on into her fucking 50s or 60s if you wanted to. Something needed to be done about Ted before she ever started cutting on herself. And she started cutting on herself before I ever met her. All he had to do was call her mentally ill, and magically it all goes away. They look at all of those cuts on her arms. Those cuts that are there because her dad was fucking her. And her mom and her stepmoms did nothing about it. They knew it was going on. and they did nothing about it. That's why those cuts are there. It's a two-part system. Those cuts don't start showing up until she's already tried to say something. And every cut that she gets after that is another attempt. And it starts off usually as a lady bick on the wrists. And you lock her up and feed her pills and call her mentally ill. And now she's got a label hanging over her head that makes her perpetually a victim for the rest of her life. For the rest of her life, she will be the primary prey of predatory individuals, both men and women, for the rest of her life. People who work for government agencies will know that they can blow her off like she doesn't matter, like she's not a human being. Police will know that they can abuse her at will, lock her up on false charges, turn off their body cameras and make it their word versus hers. And her word doesn't matter. A lot of times, girls and boys, by the way, I must mention this happens to boys as well. There's that point where that girl does try to tell on her predator and the police show up and give her a choice. Either you can stay here with your predator, or I can lock you up. That's right, you needed the cops there because your dad is doing something that he shouldn't. And that cop is giving you the choice between you getting locked up or staying with the man who's raping you. That's the choice Natalie had. It's a choice a lot of us had. Firsthand, we know the experience that those of you who have never had to experience, consider yourself lucky for that. Instead of pretending that it doesn't happen or trying to make it into a pissing contest. Like you pretending if someone has it worse than you had it, that it is a pissing contest and they must be making things up. Most of these people who stabbed me in the back and threw me away, they're like, dude, you're the most honest person I know. That's right, I am. So why didn't you come forward and speak up? Why didn't you listen to me? When I tried to show these people what was going on, they told me, I believe you. Believe what? Instead of hearing me, you're busy giving me advice. Advice that could be great advice, but it doesn't apply to my situation. A lot of these people, after throwing me away, they only got back a hold of me when they had problems in Colorado. They're like, dude, I need help. I'm like, I can't help you. I can't go back to Colorado. Are you fucking kidding me? You had a chance to speak up. You kept on saying stuff like, I don't know nothing. Really, you do. Instead of typing and texting to me, call me and listen to what I got to say. A lot of the information that you have that you think is fucking trivial and doesn't matter, it does matter because it shows what the police and what the Bollingers said was fucking outright bullshit. The stuff that they used to try to frame me for crimes I didn't commit was outright bullshit. And in every one of these situations, there are people who were witnesses who said, I didn't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I didn't see nothing. You know why they didn't see nothing? Because they didn't care enough to look. While my predators cared enough to look at all of my videos and all of my posts and try to call everything spam to have it taken down. Or they saw it and they just chose to look the other way. A lot of these people, when I tried to show them evidence, said, I believe you, Sean, I believe you. Sean, you're the most honest guy I know. Of course I believe you. Then later on, they're like, well, I didn't see any of the evidence. Well, I tried to show it to them, but they wouldn't look because they believed me. How about speak up? How about actually take a look at it and verify that it exists? Because these officers and the Bollingers are trying to pretend that I am a violent schizophrenic, and you all know me better. A lot of people are mad at me about what's on the internet. That's the thing about a lot of the things that people were using as their excuses. At the very beginning, when I didn't have the ability to record everything, I knew what people's excuses would be if they didn't come forward. I already knew. I already knew that a lot of the things that they said and did, after I lost certain things, I was not going to be able to show the truth anymore. And because I was being honest on my YouTube and on my Facebook, people were going to know that that evidence was gone. And they could say things like, oh, well, that never happened. That never happened. Well, guess what? I recorded a lot of it. A lot of it that it was in text messaging. I had to go back and take screenshots and send them to myself of a lot of different text messages on those phones so that I did still have evidence of it. So a lot of people, knowing that one set of evidence was gone, they're like, oh, well, that phone that I was texting with him on, that's gone, so I can say whatever I want and leave out whatever I want. Well, no, it don't work that way. Sean already saved it. I know I should not refer to myself in the third person. But there is a reason that I saved that evidence. There's a reason that I went to the people for help that I went to for help. I went to people that I thought might, maybe, possibly understand. A lot of people had kids, and that did make it a giant pain in the ass. But for the most part, it wasn't the kids making it a pain in the ass. It was the adults not knowing how to interact with their own children, or the children that they just took responsibility for when they're in no position to even take care of themselves. Like Rand Ingersoll and her drinking. She had no business taking them kids. She had no business with Amy Kingery's kids whatsoever. That was an unsafe situation right from the start. And she fucking knew it. And she still put her kids with Rand Ingersoll. Oh, I hope that guy doesn't smack into that car. Ooh. Big truck in a very tiny parking space. And the area in between the two lanes is only about a vehicle deep. So as he's trying to back out, he's having to cut his bumper caddy corner, at an angle in between two of the other vehicles there, like 5 or 6 inches, so that he can kind of make the corner. So I was watching him. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that we do that's screwed up. We all make mistakes. But how many people actually admit it? For a lot of these people that I went to for help, they admitted that I went to them for help. But they didn't admit it where it needed to be, on paper and in court. A lot of people said that they tried to make police reports and they were denied the right to do so. Well, they need to speak up. If you're not willing to speak up, then don't tell me that you're going to help me. If you can't say something in court, how are you helping me? Let's say I got 10 people helping me, but all 10 of them are afraid to speak up in court. They're witnesses to the situation. They were there in person for the situation. They're a witness, literally an eyewitness to the situation. But if they're too afraid to show up in court, or they're too broke to show up in court, that's not my fault, and it wasted my time and my very precious resources for help that I didn't get. The help that I needed was very specific. It's because of the way that the laws are written. I needed someone there in person with me for everything. And after 5 years, 6 years now of this, it's a lot. These things that they did to others, and they're paying out the ass to all these other people. They did those same things to me, but who tried to get the body camera evidence in any of these situations? That's right, nobody. They just assumed that I was crazy. And then when many of these predators did these things, literally did these things that I was speaking out about, they literally did these things to other human beings and got in trouble for it. But they still want to pretend like I was making it up. No, I was trying to turn it in for a reason. None of those situations, none of those desperate situations would have happened if I'd have actually had someone in my corner. And how can I actually have someone in my corner if they're not willing to look at evidence and fucking speak up? A lot of people, they were saying, yeah, Sean, if you send it to me, I'll turn it into the cops, since obviously they're not helping you. Maybe they'll listen to me. Yeah, Sean, if you send it to me, I'll do that. And fucking 7 months down the road, I'm like, did you turn it into the cops? No, Sean, I didn't. I don't know how to do that. I have to have my daughter come over and help me. Well, why didn't you say that 7 months ago? I'd have found someone else. And then there's the conversations with Dan Fabert and the information with that. Yeah, that Layla Johnson lady was nuttier than fucking squirrel turds. You get to hear Dan Fabert's own words. And there's some of my stories where I'm sorry that it sounded fanciful and fantastical when I said that the FBI had called Dan Fabert, because obviously in the conversation that he and I had, he admitted that it was not the FBI that he talked to. It was the Secret Service. And before you go saying that that's crazy, go listen to the conversations between me and Dan Fabert on this YouTube channel. Yes, I literally did threaten the life of the President of the United States. That's not a joke. They did call Dan Fabert about that. When I said that I literally broke the law to try to force the FBI to look at this fucking evidence and what these cops were fucking doing statewide in Colorado, and the fact that officers in Nebraska had taken part. I should not have had to do those things. But I had already gone to all of the places that I was told to go. I'd already gone to the state patrol office more than once. I'd gone to the department heads of all of the places that I was supposed to do. And you know what that did? All that did was allow the officers that I was trying to turn in and allow their superior officers to give them a heads up, to allow them to start the process of hiding evidence and making shit up. Before Natalie was killed, the cops didn't give a fuck about me. They helped out Natalie and my other predators who were helping out Natalie. These other people who were threatening to kill me and threatening to kill my family that I was trying to get help with, I didn't get that help. I jumped through all of the hoops that I was supposed to in Nebraska. And the professionals in Nebraska told me, hey, you got to go to the Front Range of Colorado. That's where all the services are. That's where all the autism specialists are. That's where the autism advocates are. That's where the good doctors and hospitals are in the area. You got to go to the Front Range of Colorado. And I did that. And people wanted to pretend like I moved to Colorado to fucking stalk Natalie. No, I didn't even know she was in Colorado. I went to Colorado for the doctors, for the services, to try to get the help that I needed. And to this day, I've still been denied that help. I can't get that help now because of everything that has been done to me. Because of the constant physical pain from being repeatedly abused physically by law enforcement. The horrible fucking nightmares that I have about the places that I've been sent for trying to turn in those bad cops. This can be directly compared to Jews having to go to Adolf Hitler to complain about Heinrich Himmler and Fritz Sauckel. If y'all know anything about history, you know that Heinrich Himmler was the guy in charge of the SS. And you know that Fritz Sauckel was the guy who was in charge of the forced labor. That's right, slavery in Germany. Our country is going to shit. In the 1980s, they pumped us full of all this stuff about the USSR and what the USSR was doing to these people, and about how they're testing drugs on kids and so on and so forth. They did that here in the United States. Okay? Multiple news agencies have done specials on the over-drugging of children in the system in this country. How they're on too many medications, in the opinion of many, many, many doctors, to be able to tell what's fucking wrong with them, if there is something wrong with them at all, because of the side effects and the mixing of the medications and the doses that were used. In some cases, these drugs were administered at levels that are unsafe for adults. Diane Sawyer is one of those people who made a special about that. Just one of many. The two officers who killed Demetrius Shankling, all over the news. They took part in threats, harassment, and assault against me only months earlier. Because I was not heard when I spoke up about Tim Beeson and Natalie Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger and Maddie Boa. Because I was not heard. Natalie Bollinger and others are dead. Because I was not heard when I was assaulted by Waylon Lolatai. Waylon Lolatai assaulted no less than 6 other people in 2018. And this is an officer who had a history of assaulting people. He belongs in prison. Clearview. People are dead because I was not heard when I was at Clearview. I spoke out about the things that they were doing, the antagonization, the fact that there were no actual professionals there. It was a bunch of fucking idiots who didn't have jack shit for mental health training. And they were on the news too. Just like Waylon Lolatai. Just like those 2 officers who killed Demetrius Shankling. Now let's talk about Elijah McClain. He may not have been killed by officers who did those things to me, but he was killed by the techniques and methods that were used against me. Many times. I am lucky to be alive, and Elijah McClain is just one piece of evidence that proves that. And Tibor Hatay, who was killed at Clearview, is another key piece of evidence showing and proving that. Over 700 people in the United States have been killed by those injections. Because you want to assume that they're on drugs. Or the term mentally ill means to the government that you must be a violent schizophrenic. And that's how all the mentally ill laws are written. As if you are a violent schizophrenic. You have no rights. All of your rights to the Constitution go away. That's why you need someone to speak for you. That's why you need an advocate. Obviously, what these people thought that my advocate was supposed to do, my autism advocate doesn't do, cannot do. But they get away with the things that they did because they get to say I had an advocate. No. In name only. In name only. You've gotten to hear conversations with her on this YouTube channel about how she tried to speak and nobody would listen. You got to hear from Marcia Estrada, my mental health worker, admitting that I am not schizophrenic, that I'm not bipolar, that I'm not delusional, that I have PTSD. And I put that on my channel because it's important. Now, a lot of the people that I helped to find are dead. A few of my friends who went missing are dead. Some of them are still alive. Rebecca, I was able to help to find her. She's alive. She's got some issues with, well, you guys know, yeah, I've been involved with the whole human trafficking situation for a lot of years. Trying to get people safe doesn't mean that you're actually going to get them safe. Sometimes you are the guy who finds someone. Most of the time, you're not going to be. Even if you're looking for someone, let's say you're lucky and the person is not dead. Let's say the person went missing a couple of days ago and that person has a broken ankle and they're huddling underneath a bush because it's fucking early in the morning and it was a cold night, and you're with, 200, 300, 400 people that are all making a fucking search line, and you're out there combing it back and forth trying to find this missing person. The chances of you being the person in that line of just that little area, the chances of you being the one person who finds somebody who's missing isn't that great. But the fact is, if you've got 400 people there, you can comb that area a lot fucking quicker. You can find that person while it's just a broken ankle instead of tomorrow night after there's a fucking blizzard and that person is frozen to death. When it comes to people who are called mentally ill, especially people with Tourette syndrome or people who are autistic, they're extremely easy to take advantage of because of assumptions using the term mentally ill and people's assumptions of autism. It gets people victimized. The police, when they can't find somebody to lock up for a crime, they'll find somebody they can call mentally ill and fucking bullshit it. Some places are worse about that than others. Usually depends on who's sheriff. When Jim Hayes was sheriff, if a homeless person went through Chapel, Nebraska, he didn't mind beating the shit out of him in the women's cell. Rose Melvin, a conversation with her before she was killed, or before she died, is on my YouTube channel here for you to listen to about that. Christine Buhit, she's also dead. There's conversations with her on my channel. There's actually surprisingly conversations with a lot of dead people on my channel. The fact that these people that I was telling on, the fact that there is evidence that I spoke out before they did these things to others, the fact that there is evidence that they did these things to others as well, the fact that it was on the news makes it easy for you to look it up. But also, take it with a grain of salt, which is what you should have done in my situation. Instead of just believing what you're told, why didn't you look at all of the evidence? Why was I barred from showing evidence in court? Why was I barred from going to many court dates? That's illegal. No matter what, that is illegal. I had to do desperate shit in the hopes of getting help. I didn't have family support through any of it. And my little sister did try to help a little bit, but then she was threatened and harassed. I do believe her when she says that the police followed her. They'd been following me too. Marcia Estrada, a mental health professional, claimed that a woman in Chapel, Nebraska, was being harassed by the cops in the same way, and also stated very loud and clear that this other woman in Chapel, Nebraska, was also aware of my situation and that these things were happening to me. Now, it'd be nice if I knew that woman's name, but because of patient-client confidentiality, Marcia Estrada is not allowed to give me her name. Meanwhile, all this shit should have been shown in court. Instead of me having to make hundreds of phone calls, try to go in person. Scott DaCosta tried to insinuate that I was some sort of a troublemaker because he'd had to deal with me over 20 times. What was he having to deal with me over? People committing crimes against me, dumbasses. Either him or his officers or Robert Warnick or Christopher Kurth. And I even tried to make it easy. A lot of people who were committing crimes against me, I didn't know who the fuck they were. I didn't know them from Adam. I tried to stick just to the names that I knew. You know what I was doing the day that Robert Warnick assaulted me? I was walking down the street showing all of these places with people in them that have thrown stuff at me or threatened my life or otherwise victimized me since the death of Natalie Bollinger, including child molesters in Chapel, Nebraska. And I was walking the route that I should have taken from the beginning to go to the post office from Dallas's house. It's a straight shot from Dallas's house to the post office. But if I want to avoid a bunch of people that hate me, I got to walk like 11 extra blocks. It's a 3-block walk from Dallas's house. 4 blocks. Sorry. 4 blocks from Dallas's house is the post office in Chapel, Nebraska. But I got to walk 15 blocks to get there. Stupid. Not because there was a bunch of protection orders against me, because there weren't. It was because I was trying to avoid everybody who was threatening my life or assaulting me or throwing things at me. People who were up to no good because in a small town they have nothing better to do with their lives. They heard a rumor, so it's okay. That's how their alcoholic and meth-induced fucking stupidity works. My battery's low, so I got to close this up. Y'all have a pleasant evening. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught.